Good afternoon, everyone. We are from Group 5. Before we start the presentation, let me introduce myself first. My name is Inu Hanendra as the first speaker, and then Mbak Putu Septiani as the second speaker. Today we're going to discuss about language variation. Let's start now. So, we start from the language varieties. Language varieties are caused by social interaction activities undertaken by the community or a group of highly diverse and due to inhomogeneous speakers. Variation in language can be classified based on the presence of social diversity and function of social activities in the society. Then we go to the regional variation. There are two dialects. The first one is a regional dialect, marks of the resident of one region from those other regions, and then for the social dialect, a variety associated with specific social class or group, marking that class or group from other classes or groups. The mapping of regional dialects has had a long history in linguistics. It is very established part of the study of how language change over time. It is called diachronic or historical linguistic. Linguistic study of dialect geography has employed assumptions and methods drawn from historical linguists, and many of its results have been used to confirm findings drawn from other historical resources. The regional dialect. In this view, languages differentiate internally as speakers distance themselves from one another over time and space. The changes result in the creation of dialects of the languages. Over sufficient time, the resulting dialect might become new languages as speakers of the resulting varieties become unintelligibly to one another. So, for example, Latin become French in France, and then Spanish in Spain, and then Italian in Italy, and so on. In this model of language change and dialect differentiation, it should always be possible to relate any variation found within a language to the two factors of time and distance. The best known regional Malay varieties are the ones spoken in Indonesia and Malaysia. Some of the dialects found in the two have been due to different linguistic and cultural influences following the colonial ages. For example, the word bag, which means in Indonesia is tas, it was bag. And then in Indonesia, coba means cuba. And then bicara means cakap. And then ukuran means sis. And then televisi means television. And then kasus as case. Another example is that the English spoken by Americans and British men are considered different from one another. The history of English recorded that the immigration of people from England to US, the expeditions brought the people and their mother tongue from the west part of England that landed and lived in southern regions of the land. The English spoken in the US as the whole American English is homogeneous and considered to be different from the spoken one by people in England, including the countries historically associated the island, known as British English. For example, the spelling of color and check, they have different spelling. And then the name for the fall, it is named autumn in England. And then for the store, it is named shop. And then for the pronunciation, the word far, it's quite different, where in British, it is pronounced far, and in American, it's pronounced far. And then the word new and new. Then from structure, it is for the word different from, they use the word, the American use the word different then. And then have you got it to do you have it? English has been developing in other places to create several new regional varieties called New Englishes. These include the varieties of English found in Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Uganda, India, Hong Kong, China, Singapore, and Papua New Guinea. In general, the varieties display different features in their pronunciation, in the phonology and the structure, the grammar, and the meaning, semantics from the standard English. And then the next is historical linguistic, how language can change over time and relate to one another. Now, this is the traditional model of linguistic. Researchers try to explain any differences they find with models familiar to the historical linguist. Model which incorporate such concepts as the family tree. For example, Latin has branched into French, Spanish, and Italian, and then the phonemic split. English F and V, F or V, are now distinctive phonemes, whereas once they were phonetic variants or allophones of a single phoneme, or phonemic colocants. English EA and English E double E spellings as in beat and beat were once designed different pronunciations, but they have now coalesced into the same sound. And then the comparative method of reconstruction. Now, the English nave and German nape come from the same source. And then the internal reconstruction. Mouse and mice have different vowel sounds. And then mapping dialects. Now, the dialects geographers have traditionally attempted to reproduce their findings on maps in what they call dialect atlases. They try to show the geographical boundaries of the distribution of a particular linguistic feature by drawing a line on a map. Such line is called an isogloss. Now, it is the line people say something one way. For example, pronounce bath with the first vowel of father, it became bath. And on the other side, they use some other pronunciation, for example, vowel cat, so it became bath. Now, this is the Rhenish fan. It is one of the best known sets of isoglosses in Europe, setting of Low German to the north from High German to the south. Now, you can see that it has many variant forms for the word. Well, you can take a look at number 1 there, ich and ich. Now, ich means I, and then the letter, how to write it, it is different. And then the word maken and machen, it means make in English, and then they have different writing. And then for dorp, number 3, it is supposed to be dorp with P and dorf with F. And then for op and off, and then dat and das, it is from the word that. And then apple and apfel, it is from the word apple. It is the same meaning, but however, they have different writing. And then there are the term of isolex, isomorph, isophone, and isosim. If you can see that it separates the lexical items, morphological features, phonological features, and semantic features. Now, various types of isogloss are distinguished. For example, an isophone is a feature of pronunciation, and then isolect is an item of vocabulary, and then isomorph a feature of word formation, and then isosim a particular word meaning. And then relic areas, focal areas, and transition areas. Now, what is focal area? An area whose dialect has exerted influence on the dialect surroundings areas as reflected inside of its glosses, more or less concentrically surrounding it. For example, in Beverly Hills, it affects LA called Coke to be soda. And then relic area. An area isolated from the influence of any local area and preserving older linguistic forms that have been lost in other regions. For example, in Antelope Valley, they call bubbly with Coke. Although other regions have changed the mention of Coke with soda, then the Antelope Valley is called the relic area. Now, for example, maybe when I visited my grandma far away there, they used the word Honda to pronounce motorcycle. They used the brand as how to call it, and then they used the word Daihatsu for calling angkot. And then a transition area, an area whose dialect has been influenced by the dialect of one or more neighboring focal areas. For example, the neighboring areas of Beverly Hills, such as Watts, influence the LA called Coke rather than soda. LA called this LA called a transition area. And then we talk about dialect mixture and free variation. Dialect mixture is the existence in one locality of two or more dialects which allow a speaker or speakers to draw now on one dialect and then on the other. An alternative explanation is free variation. It is variation of no social significance. For example, when we pronounce the word lupis, it is the same meaning with lopis. It means that it has no social significance. The meaning is still the same. And then the linguistic variable. The first one we will talk about variance, but let's start from the linguistic variable first. A linguistic variable is a linguistic item which has identifiable variants, which are the different forms which can be used into an environment. For example, the word singing and fishing are sometimes pronounced as singing and fishing. The final sound in these words may be called the linguistic variable ng, with its two variants ng and singing and n in singing. Another example of variable can be seen words like farm and far. These words are sometimes given r-less pronunciations. In this case, we have the linguistic variable of r with two variants r and 0. There are at least two basically different kinds of variation. One is of the kind ng with its variants ng or n, like singing and singing, or th with its variants th or of, as it is pronounced as with. In this first case, the consonant is with which quite clearly distinct variant is used with of course the possibility of 0. The ng variable has been widely used. Labov 2006 page 259 says that it has been found to have the greatest generality over the English speaking word and has been the subject of the most fruitful study. And then the r variable mentioned above has also been much used. Other useful variables are the h variable in words like house and hospital, that is h and h or 0. The and the variables in thin and they, that is th or and the. And variables like the final t and d in what is it? T and d in words like test, in words like test and told. That is their presence, they are presence and or absence. And then the vowel variables used included the vowel e in words like pen and man, the o in dog, cot, coffee, the a in bag, bat, half, and the u in pull. And then indicators, markers, and stereotypes. An indicator is a linguistic variable to which little or no social import is attached. Only a linguistically trained observer is aware of indicators. For example, some speakers in North America distinguish the vowel in cot and cot, and others do not. This is not salient to most non-linguists. And then a marker can be quite noticeable and potent carriers of social information. You do not always have to drop every G. That is, always say singing as singing. Labov says that we observe listeners reacting in discrete way. Up to a certain point, they do not perceive the speaker dropping his G's at all. Beyond a certain point, they perceive him as always doing so. Labov, 1972, page 2. 226. Nah, the G dropping is a marker everywhere English is spoken. People are aware of markers, and the distribution of markers is clearly related to social grouping and to styles of speaking. And then the stereotype is popular and therefore conscious characterization of speech of a particular group. For example, in New York, they call bird for boy. Now, a stereotype need not conform to reality, rather it's over people rough and ready categorization with all the attendant problems of such categorizations. And then for the next linguistic and social variation will be explained by Miss Putu. Thank you.